So, the conversation began when a developer named CJ posted a screenshot on X showing what he claimed was Binance's listing offer to his project. The terms were, honestly, staggering. More than 1% of the total token supply as an initial airdrop, additional airdrops within 6 months, a $250,000 security deposit, and $2 million worth of BNB locked up. That post, well, it immediately caught attention. Jesse Pollock, who's a pretty prominent figure in the crypto development community, jumped in and argued that listing should cost 0% for builders. His point was that exchanges ought to support legitimate projects without, extracting massive fees and token allocations. And that's when CZ himself jumped into the thread to explain the reality of exchange operations. CZ's response was measured but, honestly, pretty revealing. He started by flipping the perspective. If your project is strong, exchanges will race to list your coin. In other words, if you're being asked to pay, it might be a sign that your project just isn't compelling enough. Yet. Strong projects create demand. Demand creates competition among exchanges, and competition, well, it eliminates fees. But then he got into the mechanics. He explained that exchanges operate under 3 general models. The first model is the list everything approach. These exchanges don't discriminate. They list any token that applies and charge listing fees as their primary business model. It's volume-driven. More tokens basically equal more trading activity, which equals more fee revenue. The second model is selective listing with requirements. These exchanges carefully choose which projects to support and ask for airdrops or security deposits as protection. CZ argued that this approach helps shield users from scams and failed projects. If a project has enough resources to deposit millions of dollars, it suggests they're serious. If they can't or won't, that's a red flag for the exchange. The third model is hybrid, mixing selective standards with different requirements depending on the product. A spot listing might have one set of criteria. A futures contract might have another. Margin trading could be different still. Exchanges tailor their approach based on risk and user protection needs. CZ also made a point that, honestly, a lot of people overlooked. Nobody forces projects to use centralized exchanges. Decentralized platforms like PancakeSwap exist precisely for projects that don't want to meet centralized exchange demands. If a project believes in decentralization, it really should embrace decentralized listing options rather than complaining about centralized requirements. That entire exchange provides the framework for understanding Kaspa's situation. Because when you apply CZ's logic to Kaspa specifically, the absence of a Binance spot listing suddenly makes sense. Quick pause. If this behind-the-scenes look at exchange listings is opening your eyes to how the game actually works, hit that like button right now. This is the information exchanges don't want broadly understood because it exposes the leverage they have over projects. And if you're not subscribed to TJ Crypto World, subscribe immediately. We expose the mechanics of crypto markets that other channels ignore because they're sponsored by the same exchanges we're analyzing. Turn on notifications so you don't miss the follow-up when we track whether Kaspa eventually makes it onto Binance. Okay, so let's apply CZ's framework directly to Kaspa and see why, even though it's got one of the strongest technical foundations in crypto, it faces some really unique challenges getting listed. First, let's talk about the fair launch issue. Kaspa had no pre-mine, no ICO, and no venture capital allocation. Every single KAS token was either mined or bought on the open market. That's actually super rare in today's crypto world and, honestly, it gives Kaspa a ton of credibility, especially among proof-of-work purists. But here's the thing, it also creates a real practical problem. There's just no centralized treasury holding millions of tokens that can be negotiated away. So, when Binance asks for 1% of the supply as an airdrop to its users, most projects have founder allocations or venture reserves they can use. They just transfer tokens from their pre-allocated holdings. Sure, it's a cost, but it's manageable, since those tokens were always set aside for strategic stuff like this. Kaspa, though, doesn't have that option. The developers don't control huge token reserves because there never were any. The only way to meet airdrop requirements would be to actually buy tokens on the open market, and that kind of defeats the whole purpose. The security deposit requirements? Yeah, those create similar issues. Projects with venture capital backing can post $2 million in BNB or other collateral, since they raise that money specifically for things like exchange listings. Kaspa didn't raise venture funding. The whole development is community-driven and supported by donations. So, scraping together millions for security deposits just isn't realistic when the entire operation is running on voluntary contributions and mining rewards. Now there's also the technical integration challenge. Kaspa uses block DAG architecture, which is a fundamentally different setup from the traditional blockchain. Most exchanges have integration processes designed for linear blockchains, so integrating Kaspa means custom development work to handle its unique transaction structure and consensus mechanism. That's extra cost and complexity for Binance's technical team. And, CZ's comment about strong projects creating listing demand is interesting in Kaspa's case. Binance already offers KAS futures trading, which shows they see that market demand. Futures contracts let people speculate on KAS price movements without Binance actually holding or transferring real KAS tokens. That's just a lot easier, both technically and operationally. But spot listings are different. Spot means users deposit actual KAS tokens, store them on Binance's infrastructure, and withdraw them to personal wallets. That requires full node integration, security auditing, and ongoing maintenance. It's a bigger commitment that Binance apparently hasn't made yet, despite offering the easier futures option. There's also a strategic component. Binance might be waiting for Kaspa's ecosystem to mature before committing to a spot listing. Smart contracts are still being developed. Layer 2 solutions are in early stages. The decentralized application ecosystem is nascent. From Binance's perspective, waiting for those pieces to solidify before listing might reduce risk. If they list now, and Kaspa's development stalls, they've committed resources to maintaining a coin without growing user demand. The compliance angle can't be ignored either. Binance operates in multiple jurisdictions with varying regulatory requirements. Listing a new asset requires legal review in each market. Proof-of-work coins face additional scrutiny in some regions due to energy consumption concerns. Kaspa's unique structure might require more extensive legal analysis before Binance feels comfortable listing it globally or even in select markets. So, what does all this mean if you hold KAS or you're considering buying? Understanding the listing dynamics changes how you evaluate the project's current state and future potential. First, recognize that lack of a Binance listing doesn't invalidate Kaspa's technology. The blockchain processes transactions, maintains security, and delivers on its technical promises regardless of what exchanges support it. Kaspa's value proposition is solving the blockchain trilemma, achieving decentralization, security, and scalability simultaneously. That value exists independently of Binance's decision-making process. Second, the fair launch should be viewed as a feature, not a bug. Yes, it creates challenges for exchange listings, but it also means you're not competing against venture capital lockup expirations or founder token dumps. Every KAS holder entered through the same mechanism mining or open market purchase. That creates alignment that most crypto projects lack. When insiders don't have massive token advantages, price discovery reflects genuine market dynamics rather than controlled supply releases. Third, Kaspa's approach signals long-term thinking. Projects that pay millions for listings are, well, they're really just optimizing for short-term exposure and speculation. Binance listings create immediate volume spikes, but honestly, if the project lacks substance, that volume disappears quickly. Kaspa is building infrastructure first, and positioning for listings second. That sequence is, reversed from most projects, but it's arguably more sustainable. Fourth, alternative exchanges provide adequate liquidity for now. Qcoin, MEXC, and others list KAS with reasonable volume. You can buy and sell without significant slippage, unless you're moving massive amounts. The absence of Binance is inconvenient, but it's definitely not crippling. As Kaspa's ecosystem develops and demand grows, Binance will face competitive pressure from other exchanges that are capturing KAS trading fees. Fifth, understand that futures availability on Binance is actually positive. It proves Binance recognizes Kaspa exists and, well, that there's real market interest. The futures listing required some level of due diligence and approval. That's the first step. Spot listings often follow futures, once exchanges verify sustained interest, and, complete technical integration. Kaspa is in the pipeline, even if the timeline is unclear. The strategic question for Binance becomes, when does not listing Kaspa become more costly than listing it? If Kaspa's price continues appreciating, if its ecosystem keeps developing, if competing exchanges capture significant KAS trading volume, at some point, Binance leaves money on the table by not listing. That competitive pressure works in Kaspa's favor over time. If this analysis helped you understand why Binance listings aren't just about project quality, smash that like button, share this video with anyone confused about why their favorite project isn't on major exchanges, and hey, subscribe to TJ Crypto World for analysis that explains the business mechanics behind crypto markets. We cover what drives decisions, not just what the decisions are. Turn on notifications because when Kaspa's listing status changes, you'll want to know immediately what it means. So, here's where we land with Kaspa and Binance. CZ's explanation revealed that exchanges operate under specific business models with concrete requirements. Kaspa's fair launch, lack of venture backing, and unique technical architecture make it difficult to meet those requirements in the short term. But those same characteristics are what make Kaspa credible among proof-of-work advocates. The question isn't whether Kaspa is strong enough for Binance. CZ himself said strong projects create listing demand that forces exchanges to race for inclusion. Kaspa is building that strength through technology rather than negotiation. It's the long game, rather than the shortcut. For holders, this means patience is required but justified. You're not invested in a project that compromised its principles for quick exchange access. You're invested in infrastructure that refuses to play political games with centralized entities. That alignment with decentralization ideals is either valuable to you or it isn't. Binance will list Kaspa when the combination of competitive pressure, user demand, and technical readiness makes not listing more costly than listing. That timeline might be 6 months, might be 2 years, but if Kaspa continues executing on its technical roadmap, the listing becomes inevitable rather than hopeful. Thanks for watching TJ Crypto World. If you want to understand more about how exchange listings actually work and why most projects pay massive fees for access, check out our video on the hidden costs of centralized exchanges. It's linked on your screen right now. I'll see you in the next one. Stay informed, stay patient, and never mistake exchange listings for project validation.